Hollywood has always been a place of glitter, fame, and unimaginable wealth. But behind the bright lights, many stars from the golden age lost everything, sometimes overnight. Today, we'll uncover 17 classic stars who lost fortunes overnight in the most shocking ways. Stay tuned, because number 1 will leave you speechless. Judy Garland, the unforgettable star of The Wizard of Oz, earned millions during her career, yet her fortune slipped through her fingers in shocking ways. From a very young age, she was pushed into the spotlight, but behind the fame came mismanagement, exploitation, and crushing debts. Studio contracts drained her earnings, and unscrupulous managers mishandled her finances. Multiple divorces and lawsuits only deepened her troubles. Despite being one of the most beloved entertainers in Hollywood, Judy often found herself broke, forced to perform in small clubs and concerts just to cover expenses. Tragically, when she passed away at only 47, she left behind not wealth, but financial chaos, a heartbreaking downfall for a true Hollywood legend. Bela Lugosi, forever remembered as Dracula, became one of the most iconic figures in horror cinema. His chilling presence on screen earned him worldwide fame, yet behind the curtain his financial life was a tragedy. Typecast as a monster, he struggled to find serious roles, which meant fewer opportunities and shrinking paychecks. His battle with addiction drained his savings, while failed marriages and poor financial planning pushed him deeper into debt. At one point, Lugosi was forced to sell personal belongings just to survive. Despite his legendary status, he spent his final years borrowing money from friends to cover basic needs. When he passed away in 1956, the great Dracula star left behind little more than his haunting legacy. Mickey Rooney was once the biggest box office star in the world, with a career stretching from silent films to modern television. He earned millions during his decades in Hollywood, but his fortune vanished in heartbreaking ways. Rooney's lavish spending, combined with 8 divorces, drained much of his wealth. On top of that, he was often misled by managers and even exploited by members of his own family, leaving him financially vulnerable despite his fame. In his later years, Rooney shocked the public when he admitted that at one point he had less than $20 in his bank account. His story serves as a reminder that even the brightest stars can fall victim to betrayal and misfortune. Dorothy Dandridge made history as Hollywood's first black leading lady, dazzling audiences with her talent and beauty. She broke barriers with her Oscar-nominated role in Carmen Jones, earning fame and fortune that few African-American actresses of the era ever achieved. But behind the glamour, Dorothy's finances quickly spiraled out of control. Shady business managers mishandled her money, leaving her with mounting debts. Failed investments drained her savings, and costly legal battles added even more strain. Despite her stardom, opportunities in Hollywood were limited, forcing her to struggle just to make ends meet. By the time of her untimely death at only 42, Dorothy Dandridge had lost nearly everything, leaving behind a tragic legacy of talent overshadowed by financial ruin. Errol Flynn, the dashing swashbuckler of Hollywood's golden age, lived a life as adventurous off-screen as the roles he played. At the height of his career, Flynn earned a fortune from classics like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. Yet his reckless lifestyle quickly consumed it all. Lavish parties, expensive yachts, and a taste for luxury drained his bank accounts. Multiple divorces and endless legal troubles added to his financial downfall, forcing him into constant debt. Despite his enormous star power, Flynn often found himself struggling to maintain his extravagant image. By the time of his untimely death at just 50, the once wealthy screen idol had little left, remembered more for his charm than his fortune. Mae West, the bold and witty queen of double entendre, was one of the highest-paid stars of her time. Her sharp tongue and magnetic screen presence made her a Hollywood legend, earning millions throughout her career. Unlike many stars, Mae tried to take control of her finances, but even she wasn't safe from betrayal and misfortune. Shady advisors mismanaged her money, leading to devastating losses in failed investments and real estate ventures. Despite her enormous earnings, much of her wealth disappeared through poor financial guidance. Yet Mae's resilience kept her working well into her later years. Although she lost a significant portion of her fortune, she never lost her iconic confidence, remaining a symbol of glamour and independence. Sammy Davis Jr., the multi-talented singer, dancer, and Rat Pack member, dazzled audiences with his charisma and unmatched stage presence. At the height of his fame, he earned millions, performing in Las Vegas, on Broadway, and in Hollywood films. Yet, behind the success, Sammy lived a lifestyle as extravagant as his talent. Lavish spending on cars, jewelry, and parties drained much of his income, while his love of gambling cost him millions more. To make matters worse, he faced serious trouble with the IRS after falling behind on taxes. By the late 1970s, he reportedly owed more than $5 million, a staggering debt that haunted him for years. Despite working tirelessly to pay it back, the fortune he once enjoyed was gone. Sammy Davis Jr. remains a legend, but his financial downfall is a stark reminder of how fame and fortune can vanish overnight. Rita Hayworth, forever remembered as the sultry star of Gilda, was once hailed as the most glamorous woman in Hollywood. At her peak, she earned massive paychecks and lived a life of red carpet elegance. But behind the spotlight, Rita's finances were in constant turmoil. Several of her marriages left her vulnerable to exploitation, as husbands and business managers mishandled her money. Costly legal battles and broken relationships further chipped away at her fortune. Though she remained a household name, roles became fewer as she grew older, forcing her to live on much less than the wealth she had once commanded. By the time she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, her financial situation was fragile. Rita's story is one of beauty, fame, and heartbreak, a reminder that even the brightest Hollywood icons were not immune to financial ruin. Gary Cooper, the tall, quiet hero of Hollywood classics like High Noon and Sergeant York, was one of the most respected actors of his generation. He earned enormous sums during his career, often ranking among the top-paid stars in the industry. But while Cooper's on-screen persona was steady and reliable, his financial life was far more precarious. Like many wealthy celebrities of the time, he placed his trust in risky oil ventures and speculative stock market investments. Unfortunately, those ventures collapsed, wiping out much of his fortune. Though he continued working and remained in demand, the losses were devastating, leaving him with far less security than fans might imagine. Cooper lived modestly in his later years, but the financial empire he once built had already crumbled. His story reveals how even the most disciplined and admired stars could fall victim to financial missteps. Jean Harlow, Hollywood's original platinum blonde bombshell, became a sensation in the 1930s with films like Red Dust and Dinner at 8. Her striking beauty and charisma made her one of MGM's biggest moneymakers, and she earned a fortune at a very young age. But Jean's financial life was never her own. Her controlling mother managed her earnings, often spending recklessly and leaving Jean with little control over her money. Studio contracts also exploited her talent, paying her far less than she was truly worth compared to the profits her films generated. Despite her fame, Harlow lived with financial uncertainty throughout her career. Tragically, she died at just 26 from kidney failure, leaving behind no significant fortune to match her stardom. Jean Harlow's story is a haunting example of how even Hollywood's brightest stars could be left powerless over their own wealth. Marlon Brando, often hailed as one of the greatest actors of all time, revolutionized Hollywood with unforgettable performances in A Streetcar Named Desire and The Godfather. His immense talent brought him staggering paychecks, making him one of the highest-paid stars of his era. Yet Brando's financial life was as turbulent as his personality. Known for his extravagant lifestyle, he spent millions on private islands, luxury estates, and endless indulgences. Failed film projects drained more of his fortune, while constant lawsuits and costly legal battles further eroded his wealth. Despite earning sums that could have secured multiple lifetimes of comfort, Brando often found himself struggling to keep up with expenses. In his later years, much of his fortune had dwindled, leaving a shadow over his legendary career. Marlon Brando's story is a stark reminder that even genius and wealth cannot shield someone from financial ruin. Billie Holiday, known as Lady Day, was one of the greatest jazz singers the world has ever known. Her voice carried raw emotion, shaping the future of music with classics like Strange Fruit and God Bless the Child. At the height of her career, she earned impressive sums performing in packed clubs and prestigious venues. Yet Billie's financial life was marked by tragedy. Exploitative managers and record companies took advantage of her, while her struggles with addiction drained what little she managed to keep. Legal troubles and constant arrests only worsened her financial downfall, leaving her with few opportunities to perform freely. By the time she was hospitalized near the end of her life in 1959, authorities had frozen her bank account. Shockingly, Billie Holiday died with only 70 cents to her name, a heartbreaking ending for a woman whose voice was priceless to generations. Montgomery Clift was one of the most gifted and sensitive actors of his generation, often compared to Marlon Brando and James Dean. With unforgettable performances in A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity, he earned critical acclaim and lucrative roles that made him a Hollywood powerhouse. But Clift's life took a tragic turn after a devastating car accident in 1956 that left him with severe injuries. Endless medical bills, coupled with his struggles with addiction, quickly consumed much of his earnings. Unlike many of his peers, Clift never focused on financial planning, leaving him vulnerable as his health and career declined. Once celebrated as a leading man, he spent his final years isolated, working sporadically and battling debt. By the time of his death in 1966, Montgomery Clift had lost the fortune his immense talent had once secured, leaving behind only his haunting legacy. Buster Keaton, known as the Great Stone Face, was one of the most brilliant innovators of the silent film era. His daring stunts, physical comedy, and creative genius made him a box office sensation in the 1920s, earning him a fortune and cementing his place among Hollywood's greatest pioneers. Yet Keaton's financial story quickly turned tragic. After signing away his independence to MGM, he lost creative control and much of his income. The Great Depression further wiped out his savings, while disastrous business ventures drained the rest. Struggling with alcoholism during his darkest years, he was forced to accept small supporting roles just to survive. Once a millionaire, Keaton lived modestly in his later years, far removed from the glory of his peak. By the time of his death in 1966, the man who helped shape cinema's golden age had little wealth left, only an immortal legacy. Joan Crawford, one of MGM's most glamorous and commanding stars, built a career that spanned from the silent era into the golden age of Hollywood. With classics like Mildred Pierce and Grand Hotel, she earned a reputation as both a box office draw and a shrewd professional. Her hard work paid off financially, making her one of the highest-paid actresses of her time. Yet Crawford's wealth slowly eroded under the weight of her lavish lifestyle. Extravagant spending on mansions, designer gowns, and luxury parties drained her accounts, while multiple failed marriages added costly financial burdens. As roles diminished later in her career, she was forced to downsize, even selling her possessions to stay afloat. Though she lived with dignity until her death in 1977, Crawford's fortune was a fraction of what it once had been. Her story reflects how even Hollywood royalty could face financial decline. Peter Lorre, the unforgettable character actor with the haunting eyes and distinctive voice, made a lasting mark in films like M and Casablanca. His unique presence made him one of the most recognizable faces of Hollywood's golden age. Yet despite his fame, Lorre's financial life was far from stable. Constantly typecast as villains or eccentric outsiders, he often struggled to secure high-paying roles that matched his talent. Health problems added to his troubles, limiting his ability to work consistently. Meanwhile, poor financial management and mounting medical expenses chipped away at his savings. Though he appeared in dozens of successful films, Lorre never achieved the wealth his career seemed to promise. By the time of his death in 1964, he was burdened with debt, leaving little behind for his family. His story is a bittersweet reminder that Hollywood fame does not always guarantee financial security. Lana Turner, the dazzling blonde bombshell of Hollywood, became a star almost overnight after being discovered as a teenager. With unforgettable roles in films like The Postman Always Rings Twice, she earned fame, fortune, and the title of one of MGM's top leading ladies. At her peak, She enjoyed all the luxuries that stardom could buy, lavish homes, designer fashion, and an endless whirl of Hollywood parties. But Lana's personal life often overshadowed her career. Multiple divorces, costly legal battles, and a notorious scandal involving her daughter Cheryl drained her finances. Despite once being one of the highest-paid actresses in the world, by the 1980s, much of her wealth had disappeared. Though she continued to work occasionally, the fortune she had built was gone. Lana Turner's story is a cautionary tale of how fame, extravagance, and turmoil can erase even the greatest Hollywood fortunes.